I'm sure you'll recognize that, the iconic sound of the Yamaha DX7. But today I want to talk about it in a different context. I want to speak about vintage synthesizers, their value, and have an honest talk about the old versus the new, analog versus digital, collector's items versus tools of our trade. So let's dig in. If you're a synth nerd or keyboard player and you spend time trolling the internet on YouTube and other channels, you'll be very aware of the ongoing debate around analog versus digital, vintage versus new, and which may be better than the other. For me, I'm not going to discuss which is better. I don't think there is a better or a worse. I think it's very subjective. Depends on whether you're a jazz musician, a producer, a synth head who likes to tweak, or whether you just like making noises for sound effects for movies. It's very genre dependent. And then it's also the matter of personal taste. My context is studio production, arranging music, various genres from jazz to fusion to country to rock, but a lo-fi chill thrown in. And I just want to explore and examine and talk about the pros and cons of good old classic vintage synthesizers versus modern digital ones, VST plugins, and the various options we have available to us today. Way back in 1980, I bought my first synthesizer, a Roland SH2 monophonic analog synthesizer. A year or two later, I was playing a Roland Jupiter 4 4-voice analog synthesizer. And when I went pro on the road, my first keyboard rig was a Fender Rhodes on the bottom and a Roland Juno 60 on top. In 1983, I bought a brand new DX7 Mark I as it hit the market, one of the first in my country to own one. So you could say I have played all these instruments. In fact, when I bought the Juno 60, I was actually wanting a Jupiter 8, which I had tried out in the music store, and it was incredible. But I just could not afford it and had to go with a cheaper option. People laughed when I bought my Juno 60. They thought it was a toy. How wrong they were. It's become an iconic classic. Today, the centerpiece of my studio is a Roland Jupiter X. Fully digital, been accused of being a VST in a box, loved by some, including myself, and hated by others. Obviously, I have a digital audio workstation with a whole ton of plugins. This is really where I want to just have an honest talk. My daily mission in the studio is to produce music and to find the best sounds and the best combination of sounds to throw into that mix. Once they're in that mix, they get tweaked, effects get added, they get equalized differently, compression, mixed in, loud, soft, fade in, fade out, and they form the texture behind the main thing, which would be usually the vocalist or the guitar player in the guitar solo, etc. The DX7 Mark II you saw me play at the beginning of this video is mine. It's my second DX7. I own it, I keep it, and I haul it out on occasion to have a bit of fun with it. I use it from time to time, but not very often. It spends most of its time stored away. I own it because it's a collector's item in a sense. It sounds lovely to play. It feels lovely to play. I'm not knocking it. It's a great instrument. And I'm tempted to take it out on a gig every now and again, just for kicks. But in my daily workflow, I believe I have more practical and even better options. If I need a DX7, I have options. Even in my digital audio workstation, the stock plugin provides a really good emulation of the DX7 and actually has some sounds that I would say are even better. If I want to be a bit more authentic, there is a plugin called Dexed, D-E-X-E-D, which is completely compatible with the real DX7 and can even load its system exclusive patches. It's possibly not 100% identical, but I challenge anybody to really hear the difference if they really want to be honest about it. If you like the sound of the Roland JX8P, for example, there's a plugin called PG8X. Once again, fully compatible with the real thing, and once again, I challenge you to hear the difference. I've heard some brilliant Jupiter 8 and Juno 60 emulations as well. This may offend some of you, but having played a Jupiter 8 back in the 80s, and now owning a Jupiter X, I have no doubt that the Jupiter X sounds way better. Again, I'm not knocking the Jupiter 8. For its time, it was brilliant, and it still stands up well. And if you've got a fully working one, it's got an iconic sound that you may just want to use in your context. But objectively speaking, generally speaking, the Jupiter X sounds better than a Jupiter 8. This is just my personal opinion. But for me, it's not about what's under the hood. And I personally don't believe that what's under the hood impacts in any way what translates into your final mix. But that's just me. I think in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say, with all respect to all the opinions about these things, is that if you're a working musician who wants to produce or play music, and you have the option of buying a modern synthesizer, a digital emulation, a VST, or a classic vintage synthesizer, the question you need to be asking yourself is, am I wanting to get the job done? Am I wanting the creative versatility of the modern instrument? Or am I wanting to emulate or reproduce something from the past? If you go on eBay or Reverb, you can find Jupiter 8s and Juno 60s for ridiculous prices, crazy prices. I honestly believe that that value is not based on their sound quality or how well they work. It's based on their collector's value. It's a sentimental value. So if you're a collector, want to have a museum of synthesizers, or a hobbyist who wants to play with these things and carry yourself nostalgically back into the past, go ahead and spend that money. But if you're a regular musician wanting to make new music, I think it's crazy to spend huge amounts of money on fragile, old pieces of equipment that actually don't always sound that great, rather than just looking at the modern options. And there are plenty of options. And you can curate your own collection of options. And you don't have to sound like the guy next door. You can curate your own set of tools for your own personal preferences, for the genre of music you work in. And if you want a DX7 sound, you'll get a good one without having to find a DX7. If you want a Juno 60 sound, you'll get a good one without having to buy a Juno 60, and so on and so forth. These are my thoughts, and you obviously don't need to agree with me. But just think about it, especially if you're wanting to spend huge amounts of money on a vintage synthesizer.